Hello and welcome. This is On Screen, Off Screen. Thank you, anybody who is listening and or watching. Hope y'all are enjoying what we are given. Uh, Hopefully we're entertaining enough. What do you got for us, Colin?
Okay, my first one's actually pretty short. I just watched the first two episodes of season 2 of Severance. Have you watched this season at all yet? Okay, I've heard episode 3 is insane, so you should watch it up to where it's at right now, and we can talk about it next week. But basically, the first season of Severance, I found to be very slow. I liked the concept, and there was a lot of great things about it, but I found it slow. So far, the first two seasons of season 2 have been faster paced. I still like the characters. I still like the concept. They have a lot of good mystery behind it. We don't have a lot of answers. They do a good job of putting you in the space of the innies in the show. So the entire time you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. But I didn't feel like I was dragging my way through trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So far, so good. That's about it.
Good. Are you can't wait to watch the next episode? Or are you good to wait for it when it comes around?
I am intrigued, and I'll watch it soon. I'll probably watch it tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm intrigued. I like this season so far.
Good.
I enjoy it.
What made you decide to start season 2 after you really didn't love season 1?
Because I like the end and the start of season 1. I think the very beginning is really quite good and very intriguing, which I'm hoping doesn't happen with the show. And I think the ending is fantastic. It's that middle section that I think is slow as hell. And I'm hoping this season doesn't do that. My brother-in-law is obsessed with this show, and he said he thought that was what was going to happen in this season, but he says that it doesn't. So we'll see.
And
We'll see.
how does it compare to the beginning of season 1 then?
Uh, I'd say pretty close. Pretty close. But for me, season 1 had I think it was 2 episodes that I enjoyed pretty thoroughly, and then it started to get really slow. And apparently episode 3 is the best episode of this show so far. So I hope that it doesn't do that. I really hope it doesn't get slow.
Okay.
Because this show has a lot of potential. There's a lot of interesting aspects to it. It just needs to fulfill that potential and be worthy of the writing that it's capable of. You know?
Yeah.
Also, did you know that what's his name is the writer of the show? Roy from the Ted Lasso.
Oh.
Did you know that?
Yes, actually, I did.
I didn't know that. I just found out and it blew my mind.
He was a writer on Ted Lasso too.
Oh, I didn't know that either. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Anyway, man, what is your next one?
Based on your recommendation, I started listening to The Fish That Ate the Whale.
Okay.
And I'm about halfway through it. I'm very interested in the story that is being told. However, I do think that this book could be shorter.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Quite a bit shorter, actually. For example, I think the author says the words, the banana man, way too much.
Constantly.
Yep.
Like a lot.
Just cut it out. You only need to tell us once. I think there's actually a paragraph in the book that's like, so the banana man walked into the room and the other people were like, look, it's the banana man. And so the banana man introduced like, oh my goodness, let's move on. We get it. He's the banana man.
Cool.
I call him the banana man. We understand. Let's move on, please. So yeah, like I said, I'm about halfway through it. I do find it interesting. I'm not loving the book and the
Okay.
writing, and I'd probably stop listening at this point if it wasn't like overall a history thing for me.
Okay. And that you were intrigued by the history.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if I was not a history buff, I'd be like, this book, the writing is terrible. Shut up about the banana man. We get it. Let's
Yeah,
move
he's the
on.
banana man.
Yeah, and there's like no like personal story or character that you're rooting for or connecting with. It's
No, it's more
like a
just a history.
textbook. Yeah, they're just telling you the things that were happening. And he's like, and then the banana man met the fruit man.
Yeah, and you have a
And
little
they
bit of like
decided
an
to partner
intrigue
up. And
with the whole like uh pirate type thing that happens in the South and like taking over the country and the militia, and that's all intriguing on a historical basis, but it's not as story driven in the way that he tells it.
yeah,
It is more textbook.
yeah, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the most entertaining thing to do.
Fair
So,
enough. Fair enough. But you
yeah,
are enjoying it overall?
yeah,
Like,
the history buff in me is like, this is
whoa.
super interesting. Like, this guy basically bought bad bananas from companies, turned around and sold them to the people, and then got sued by the big companies because the banana man was more successful at selling the garbage bananas than they were at selling the actual bananas that they were.
Isn't
It's
that
like
wild? And then
you
like I don't
you sold it to him, and then you turned around and were like, "Look, he has a monopoly. He needs to be stopped."
yeah. And they get into this giant war and it literally goes for like whole countries. Whole countries get involved in this war. It
Yeah,
is crazy. The story is nuts.
yeah.
I'd be interested in what you think as you keep going. I just found the whole story interesting and I knew nothing about it. I didn't know about the United Fruit Company. I didn't know any of this.
Yeah. Well, it's very much like the paleontology story from the Frenemies Who Changed the World book.
Yeah.
Basically they were like, "No, it's my rock. No, it's my rock. Let's start a war over it." It's pretty much that, but just like on a grander scale and with bananas instead of rocks.
Pretty
You know.
much. I mean, isn't that just the story of history? This is
No,
my
but
land. No, this is my land. And then they fight over it. These are my bananas. These are my bananas. And then they fight over it. This is my uh, internet startup. This is my internet startup. And then they fight over it.
I mean, yes, but no. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay. Cool, cool.
Okay, what do you got?
Okay. The Mitchells and the Machines. Have you watched this movie?
Nope, never heard of it.
Okay. I think this is wildly underrated, like extremely underrated. Netflix does some good animation. Their animation studio was really good before they shut it down. And this one is about a family who goes on a road trip. And during the road trip, where they're all kind of like separated, it's one of those families are separated, they come together tropes. But during that time, aliens attack the United States and they're in the middle of nowhere and don't realize the aliens have attacked. And they have to come together and fight against the aliens. And it's very much an animated show. It's very much a kid-friendly show. But each of the family members is individual. They each have their own personality. They each are funny in their own ways. They have different kinds of humor. It's not the same kind of humor throughout the entire thing. The voice cast is really well done. The animation's really good. The aspect of bringing the family together, even though they are very different and they both all have different personalities, is well done. Um, and I said this before, but the music is really, really good. It's a wildly underrated show that if you have kids, if you want to watch a kids show, you just should watch. It's just fun. It's just a good show. It's just good.
So, what would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10?
8.
And what kind of ballpark would that be? Because I know you're really big on Ratatouille.
Um, Cars.
About cars. Okay.
Yeah, like I really think it's really good. Um, it's just yeah, I like the alien aspect to it. I mean, you do get a little bit ridiculous that this family can take down aliens and they have these crazy martial arts capabilities that came out of nowhere. There's some kind of ridiculousness there, but it works because it's animation and makes it highly enjoyable. It's just an enjoyable, good show with a good little message in between. Kind of like Cars is an enjoyable, good show with a good little message in between. Just makes you feel happy, you know?
I think you're underselling cars there a little bit, but I get you. I like cars a lot.
Cars is a very good movie. 8 is a good score for me. Like I like 8 is good. It's a good movie.
Yeah. I think Cars is a great movie.
Would you give Cars like a 9? So a Cars a 9 movie to you?
I would probably say like 8.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any or I guess you have a couple perfect animated movies, so never mind. I was gonna say if you have any
Two of
nines
my three perfects are 10s.
are animated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a good one. It's one that you should try because I think you'd sometime when you just are in the mood for something a little bit lighter and a little bit fun, it's worth popping on.
Okay.
All right.
I'll keep
What
that in mind.
is your next one?
So I've been going through a string of comfort watching
Okay.
uh, over the past week. Uh, One of those was House MD. It's one of my go-tos. It's probably the
Good
like
show.
third or fourth most watched show for me,
Okay.
like of all of them. I've seen House more than I've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Wow.
But it's pretty much like Psych, How I Met Your Mother. I think those are the only two I've seen more than House. Yeah, off the
What
top of my
about
head,
like The
that's the only one it was.
Office or
The Office,
or
no. I've only seen it a couple of times.
Parks and Rec?
Parks and Rec might be close. Avatar: The Last Airbender would be close,
Okay.
but not quite. I don't
So
think.
why do you like House as much as you do?
I cannot tell you because it reminded me of the video I shared with you. The series that perfected the Sherlock trope by
Yeah,
10K
yeah.
Productions. I'll put that link in the description for anybody who's interested. But it talks about why Psych is the perfect version of this show.
Yeah.
The Sherlock like esque. Um, and I think that that video is 100% right. House is, I think it's just rewatchable because you like,
Okay.
or you watch it for the drama of the characters and stuff. So
Yeah.
you often forget what the answer to all the puzzles are.
That's true.
So like when I rewatch, I always forget what the puzzle answer is. And so you get to, experience part of it for the first time like all the time because you never care enough to remember those things. Um, it's just a great show. It's really good. I know it's not the most like accurate doctor show ever, but they did go through the effort to at least represent the diseases correctly and have doctors on site to make sure pronunciations and stuff were correct. So kudos to them for that. I really like that. I was a medical major at one point, so I appreciate that part of it. I like the characters. I think they all develop really nicely, right? Like Foreman develops really nicely from this moral character to House 2.0, and Chase changes a lot, and I forgot the girl's name, but she also changes just like a ton. and it's a very slow, methodical development, episode by episode. I think they just do a really good job with that.
It's a good show. I do like House. Um,
The
I
humor's
gen-
good.
yeah, I genuinely don't know if I've watched the whole thing continuously, to be completely honest, but I've watched most of House. But it's always been with other people. And so I've watched most of this season and most of this season. And I don't know if I've seen everything, but I've seen most of it. And it's a really good show that I don't know why I don't rewatch because I like it. I have no problems with House at all. It's a good show.
I have problems with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Its villains are terrible. Like,
That's true.
absolutely awful. So in season 1, they introduce Vogler, this guy, this rich guy who gives $100 million to a hospital, right?
Yeah.
And he's this business guy. And he decides he doesn't like House, which is fair because nobody likes House. That's kind of
Yeah.
part of the
That's
plot.
kind of House's thing.
But his character doesn't make sense. He's trying to get
So,
rid of House to get rid of House. Right? He's supposed to be this business guy who's taking the hospital and making it a business rather than a point of healthcare, right? That's his
yeah.
villain arc is he's so evil he wants the hospital to be profitable. And he always goes back to it and says, "Look at the numbers. House has his salary plus 3 specialist doctors and they do 1 patient per week. What is the value of this?" And I think it would take one sit down conversation with a person like that to be like, yes, however, he's a one of one person in the world. He's a world renowned expert. He deals with specialty cases, and his reputation to this hospital and bringing more people in
Huge.
is way more than what he directly brings in. And I think
Yeah.
that business guy would be like, okay, we need to put this guy's face on a billboard
Everything.
and not, we need to get rid of this guy because he won't wear his lab coat. Right? Like, if the business guy would be like, okay, how can we make this more beneficial to us? It wouldn't be like, well, let's get rid of him.
It wouldn't be so petty.
Yeah, and it's so like he's this big. He's probably like the biggest like villain arc in the show, and like they don't go through the steps to establish that he has enough reason to hate House to want to get rid of him. Like it gets so bad, he tries to get rid of Cuddy and Wilson to get rid of House.
That's
And
ridiculous.
it's like, no, this guy has a reputation. He has a real value to the market.
Yeah.
You
And if
wouldn't
you're
just
getting
be
people from
petty like
literally
this.
all over the world to come to this hospital because of this guy, and the amount of hires that you're able to get because you have this renowned person at your hospital, people who go to major schools and are highly decorated who want to be around House, you would never get
Yeah.
rid of House ever.
Yeah. And you
House could
wouldn't get rid
sit
of.
in his room and keep his reputation and put his feet up on a chair and tell everyone to F off, and you would keep House.
I mean, like, I understand why somebody like Cuddy, an administrator, would want to get rid of House because he causes so many problems. But like
Yeah.
a finance mogul businessman
Never.
would not, unless there was like genuine reason not to, right? Like if they took the time to say, "Hey, here's Vogler. He donated $100 million to the hospital. He comes in and he tries to change things. He gets pushed back from House. He tries to reach out to House, right? And continually gets rejected by House. House is a dick to him, XYZ, whatever." Then you would get to a point where you're like, yes, I understand why
Why
he
he
would
would
want to
want to do
try
that.
so hard to get rid of House. But literally, it's like episode 1, introduce Vogler. Episode 2, House isn't wearing a lab coat. Episode 3, we need to get rid of House.
Oh, that's funny. You're
It
right. You're
was,
right. That's fair.
so like the villain arcs of the story, the times that they
Are
introduce
not
like
great.
a bad guy are not good at all. The best one was like the detective, and it's only because it makes sense on why he would want to do his job. It doesn't make sense on why he's so personally butthurt about the way he got treated by this doctor.
It's just
Like,
petty again.
it's just petty again, and they could have just been like, no, he's just a detective who you popped pills in front of, and he went and did his job. You didn't need to make it personal. Like, yeah, have him be a little butthurt about why House about the way House treated him. But why are you going and bending heaven and earth because somebody was mean to you? Really?
Grow up and stop being a little child.
That's the villain arc of House. Anyway, so I do have problems with House. I understand it's not a perfect show, but it's still just really good. It's a small part of the show with villains, honestly. I feel like
It is. I
those
actually
are
kind
the
of
two
forgot
I can even name.
about you even bringing those up, to be completely
Yeah.
honest.
So it's not a big deal at all. I know that they like try and make Vogler this villain for the story, but once they get rid of him, it's fine, and there's no
Yeah.
big deal.
And it just
Um,
goes to whatever strange
yeah,
case they're trying to figure out, which is the
yeah,
best part of the show.
yeah. So it's good. It's like I said, I've just been on this rewatch comfort, and like once you've seen it, you can doze off and fall asleep to it. No big deal.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
it's just, I think this is like a side topic, but the first time I found out that he was not American, it literally blew my mind. His accent is insane. Like, just, it's so impressive.
Hugh Laurie is a phenomenal actor.
I've never seen, have you seen him in anything else? I've never seen him in anything
Mm-hmm.
else. What else
Yeah.
is he in that you've watched?
Let me look it up.
I'm really surprised you knew his name.
So he just did The Night Manager, not a show that I've seen, but one that I am very interested to watch. He voiced one of the characters in Monsters vs. Aliens.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
He did a show called A Bit of Fry and Laurie, which is a comedic bit show with him and I forgot that guy's name, Stephen Fry, which is just funny. They're just funny people doing funny things. He voice acts quite a few things.
He voice acts a lot
Yeah,
more than I thought. He's Stuart Little, or he's in Stuart Little. He's the Stuart Little's dad.
but yeah, he does a great job with what I've seen him in.
That's cool. I would watch some more things with him, but I just really haven't seen that any. But House is good. It's a good show.
House is great. Yeah.
All right, man. My next one is Alien Romulus. I finally watched it, and I like this movie. I thought it was good. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. Um, Part of it feels to teen dystopia. Everyone in the show is like 18, 19 years old. And I think having some older people, even on the colony planet that they're from, would have been good because it
Okay.
would have felt less teen dystopian. Um, when they
So
go
like
up in,
Divergent esque, or like
yeah,
just everybody's a teen.
everyone's a teen and it just has a little bit of that vibe about it. There is one robot on the spaceship that they go to that's not a teen, but he's a fairly minor character. And I think to pull off what they were trying to pull off, they would need more resources, and time gives people more resources. And one of the things I like about the earlier movies is you have young, you have old, and it just feels like an actual developed ecosystem instead of, well, this is just a bunch of teens that happen to break into a spaceship in orbit because they want to get off of this planet. And it feels a little bit too unfulfilled. But it's a small thing. It's still an enjoyable show. They make this plan because they want to get off planet, and there's a spaceship that they can get out from. They get up there and they notice some weird things that are going on, and they come across a nest, and the aliens slowly start to attack them more and more and more. And the main girl's brother is an android, and the android starts to malfunction. The other character who is older is also an android, and he hacks the brother's system and has implants his main objective to be to help the company. The company and the spaceship has developed a serum from the aliens to be able to change humans, um, change the human genome, so that they're able to control a lot more aspects of humanity, like your metabolism, different things like that. And they want to get that back to the company so they can continue to do research. Instead of waiting for humans to evolve, they want to evolve humans manually. The aspect of the aliens on the ship is very intense. Some of it doesn't make sense, but it's still pretty awesome. There's a part where they're getting hunted down one by one, and it's just the girl and her brother. And they're at the end of this tunnel, and there's a control panel where they can turn off the gravity. Aliens are rushing in at them. They turn off the gravity, and then the aliens start to like crawl on the wall, and she shoots all of the aliens, and the acid blood is like circling, and gravity has it spinning from where they got shot. The idea in the movie is that the blood is so acidic that it would burn through the floor and it would decompress the entire spaceship. So they can't have that happen. Which in everything else, aliens' blood has not been that acidic. I thought it was kind of dumb. But for this one scene, it's pretty cool because they have to keep the gravity from reestablishing, because otherwise the ship will explode. So they float through these pools of acid that could eat their face off, and they have to kind of shoot to move themselves through gravity. Sounds kind of lame, but it is pretty awesome. The thing that I had a problem with while I'm watching this is you have these acid pools that are spinning around. None of it went out. You shot these guys. There was blood splatter, but somehow it just is spinning, and none of it decided to melt the walls with it being this acidic and maybe go out and airlock the ship. None of it at all. Kind of convenient, kind of dumb. Very cool scene, kind of dumb. There's a part where they're escaping through an elevator shaft and they're having to climb up it, and the gravity is still turned off. The elevator's at the very top, and the aliens are coming after them. The gravity starts to initialize, and they grab onto the ladder on the very side. The ladder, the girl misses it. The brother grabs on, the girl misses it, and she's falling. And all of a sudden, an alien grabs her, waits and looks at her for a couple seconds. She's able to grab the side, and the elevator just comes and smashes her. Like, everybody else has died immediately, but she decides she's able to live because the alien wants to look at her for a while, I guess. Um, there's just a couple things that are pretty dumb. The atmosphere when it's not being dumb is very intense. The aliens are really cool. And at the end of the movie, there is a girl who goes up with them who's pregnant, and she is dying. She's been bitten. She's very damaged. She's the one who's carrying the serum that changes people. She stabs herself in the neck and injects the serum while she's panicking. The baby is then infected with this mutation, and the baby comes out while they're trying to escape, and they're on the ship and they're in cold storage. The baby is this alien hybrid thing, and it is freaking terrifying. This thing is creepy as hell. The main like final boss is this baby mutant hybrid alien thing, and it's a cool fight. Very cool fight. But then you have the android brother who, after they beat it, of course had to put in the line, stay away from her, you bitch, which is famous from Aliens. It's a very famous line. It's one of the most famous lines in movie history. You didn't need to add that. The android is not that type of character. He wouldn't say that. So you take a really cool scene that's very tense, very well done. They're headed towards a planet that's like Saturn, and it's got rings, and the rings are shredding the bottom of the spaceship that they're on. It's really cool. But then you add a cheesy scene to just kind of connect with old fans of the series, and it doesn't feel placed. So you have these great highs with this show, and then you have these kind of stupid lows. And if they would just get rid of some of the lows, it would have raised the entire experience significantly.
So how does this rate among other Alien
Um,
franchise stuff as an Alien franchise fan?
I know you don't agree with this, but the second one's my favorite. Then you have the first one, 3, and then probably this one. Prometheus is pretty close. It's one of those two. And then the rest of them really are not very good.
Okay. So pretty mid, sounds like.
Pretty mid.
For an
Enjoyable
Alien
if you
movie.
like the series. Like I had a good enough time watching it, and there are parts of it that are extremely cool.
Cool. How are the visuals? Are they as good as they looked in the trailers?
They're amazing. The part where they're going over Saturn is insane. Like, it is so cool. You can see like the ice chunks, and literally it's like the ship is getting sandpapered on this Saturn ring, and it is so cool. The part where they originally find the hive and the what are they called? The alien babies are crawling through the water is very tense. It's very cool. Um, there's a lot of really awesome aspects to this. There's some cool alien lore that's really good. Mostly, it is an enjoyable show. It just has a couple things that could have made it much, much better.
Fair enough. I feel like that's true for most Alien movies. As
Yeah,
somebody who's only seen Aliens, Alien versus Predator, and it played Alien Isolation.
and that's about it. I've watched all of them. I've played Alien Isolation twice. I've watched Aliens. I don't even know how many times, and it's enjoyable enough. Is what I would call this movie. Enjoyable enough. All right, what do
Cool.
we got
Good stuff.
next?
Continuing on my train of comfort rewatches.
Okay.
This is a show I've told you to watch that I don't think you have watched, which is fine. It's called More Than a Married Couple, Less Than Lovers. Uh, the premise of this is extremely dumb. Extremely dumb. So the basic premise is these high school students are paired up into couples to pretend be married. Now, a lot of us had that experience in high school where we had to take care of the fake baby and whatever. I did not do that class, so I did not have that experience. However, this takes it further, and they're like, no, you're a married couple, and you have to live together, and you have a score based on how well you get along together. And if you don't get along like a couple, you won't graduate high school. Okay, so that's your little background. Now, the plot of this is nerdy guy has crush on girl next door. Girl
Okay.
next door has crush on nerdy guy. They
Okay.
both want to be paired up with each other, but they don't have any choice in the matter. So it ends up being that nerdy guy gets paired up with popular girl, and girl next door gets paired up with boy man dreamboat guy.
Okay.
And so they're both really jealous of the other person's partner or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's not really the focus of the show. The focus of the show is actually on nerdy guy and popular girl,
Okay.
and basically telling the story that she's more than just popular and ditzy. and there's actually more depth to her, and she's more like a real person than she often portrays in just a high school setting. And he has to grow out of his shell a little bit and grow as a person through this experience. And they're trying to achieve a certain ranking in the class, because if they're in the top 10, they get to swap partners. So basically, it becomes a nerdy guy and popular girl try and get along with each other so that they can achieve the ranking, so that they can swap partners and be with the people that they want to be with.
Yeah.
But in doing so, they end up falling in love, and girl next door gets left out for nobody because the ultimate guy is in love with this older woman, and it's left super vague and kind of weird. And they kind of just like forget about her. And the show kind of ends with him being like he has to choose between the two, as if you don't really know which one he's going to choose at this point. Um, but it's super positive. It's a big message, like I said, is, there's definitely more to a person than the person that they portray, um, and the person that they show themselves as out in public setting, like when you go to school and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The comedy is really great, and based on our conversation last time, I it's a really good example of having themes of sex without being explicit and still having it work really well. Because part of Popular Girl's whole personality is that she likes to tease him. Now, I wouldn't say it's a great example because it is an anime, so there is a bath scene with the girls, but it doesn't show anything. They just happen to be in there, and you really don't need that. And there is a
Yeah.
lot of close ups of the chest because you don't really need that either. Most of the time, occasionally it is part of the plot because he's very focused on that. Like when they first get in and have this conversation where they have to like get along so that they can get a high enough score so that they can swap partners. She like latches onto his arm and the score goes up one, and then you get this point of view of him in his head, this nerdy guy who's never really been close to a girl and is this running thing that he plays a video game and is chasing this video game girl through the whole show. Is like, oh my gosh, boobies, and they're so soft and they're so warm, and oh my gosh,
Very anime.
like very anime, but it does play a part to the show. Other times, not so much. But it's never explicit, never shows it, and there's no sex in the show. But so it's a good example of that, but could be better still. But I
I
don't know if you
will.
like rom coms and you're okay with anime. I would say watch Devil's a Part Timer because that one's the best. But if you like Devil's a Part Timer, you should watch Your Lie in April. And if you're still willing to go down anime, then you can try Love is War. And
Uh,
then after that one, you can try this one.
okay, I was going to ask you how you compared this one to Love Is War because I very much enjoyed Love Is War.
It's very much, it's along the same lines. It, like I said, it is a little bit more anime-y. It has those, a lot more of that kind of
Tropes.
stuff. Well, just like the close-ups on boobs all the time, and the whole they're in the bath scene for some reason. Um, and it like there is a lot of the show where she just the popular girl just gets a big kick out of teasing the nerdy guy while making fun of him for being a virgin. Like her nickname for him is Verge, and she goes back to it all the time. And she like it's very funny. Comedy's good. It's positive, and it's mostly really good. It's just not quite as clean as Love Is War, and not
Okay.
quite as innocent as Love Is War. Um, so not quite there, but still that same kind of show. If you like Love Is War, you'll probably like this one at least a little bit.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. All right. My next one, for the last couple of weeks, I've been going through Primal Hunter, and I've talked about it every week. And I love this series. I genuinely just love it. But each one of these, Dungeon Crawler Carl hasn't had a moment like this for me. But all these other series that are lit RPGs are typically kind of up and down. And then you have parts of it that just kind of suck, to be completely honest. There's something about it that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Primal Hunter just continues to be good. Book 10 has a little bit of a lag, and it's the only time that I've had one. I read a bunch of reviews, and I went on Reddit and I talked to some people, and there's a storyline in book 10 where they go into a dungeon. It's a world famous dungeon. It's famous throughout this entire universe, and everybody does it when they get to C grade. At the beginning of the dungeon, the main character's team is simply overpowered. So the main character and all of their team members are kind of bored. And because they're bored, you're kind of bored. It's not necessarily that it's bad. It's just that the conveying of boredom hits you. And the author actually was like, I made everybody bored like my characters. Isn't that amazing? I'm such a good author. That's basically what he said. So the very beginning of that book is a little rough. After that, I think it's fantastic. People have more problems with the dungeon. One of my favorite fight scenes in the entire book series is in that dungeon. It's fantastic. It's really well done. But it's not just fight scenes. In book 8, I believe it is, they have like a My Fair Lady kind of a storyline. He is the chosen of a god. There's 12 primordials is what they're called. And they're kind of like the apex. Every once in a while, another universe gets added. He's part of the 93rd universe. These primordials were the first ones to ever become gods. And because there was no path to godhood, it was quite a bit harder. So their power levels are significantly more, and they've had more time to grow. Extremely strong. So if you are chosen by one of these people to be one of their main followers and get part of their power, part of their records, it's a major deal. He is chosen by one of these gods. This pantheon, part of their belief structure is slavery. They have slavery. The main character doesn't like slavery. He comes from our world. It's not cool. No, he doesn't enjoy it at all. He gets presented a slave, and he needs to figure out a way to free this person. And he needs to go through a My Fair Lady type of an event where you teach her basically figure out what she wants, to actually go for what she wants. She can actually fight for what she wants. And it's cool character development for the main character. It's cool character development for the slave girl. It's a cool way of dealing with the politics that's required to be able to free slaves. It's a good way of introducing slavery to people who haven't really thought about a lot of the concepts. If you would have freed a slave, like Washington to free his slaves had to pay huge amounts of money. Basically, every single slave that he freed was equal to paying for a home during that time period. And in a lot of states, you couldn't even free the slaves unless they had done something to basically save your life. Unless it was that level of commitment from the slave, you could not legally do it. And there were many people who tried, and many people who got assassinated in their attempts to free slaves. It was not something that people did. So a lot of individuals, when I hear them talk about slaves, put it in a very black and white sense where it was bad, it should have just been done, and don't actually look at the context of the people that were involved during that period of their lives. And instead of approaching it like a historian where you're trying to understand these people, you're trying to respect their cultures, you're just trying to understand, they approach it from modern contexts. This story, I think, does a good job of explaining how hard it is to shift other people's societies, even when it's something that you don't necessarily believe in. And this main character has to go through some major hurdles to be able to shift societies, even though he is the chosen of this society's god. It's a cool aspect to the story and expands upon the character, expands upon the universe in very unique ways. I love this series. The two that are kind of comparable to it that I've read are He Who Fights with Monsters and The Completionist. The Completionist is like my guilty pleasure. I absolutely just enjoy the series. Even if there's parts where there's plot holes, I just enjoy it. I enjoy every aspect of it. He Who Fights with Monsters is probably the second most famous RPG book behind Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it is the most up and down roller coaster of a book series that I've probably ever read. There will be arcs that I think are absolutely pointless and incredibly stupid. And then there are arcs that are awesome, where the characters are great, but it is not even at all, and it feels like it's being milked for everything it's worth as it gets later in the books. This one, I don't feel like I'm getting milked for anything. I feel like he's actually continually telling a good story. And something else that's unique about it is the system that the world is built upon. You can largely shift and build the character that you want. In some of these other stories, it kind of feels like they're getting lucky with the skills that they're given. And sometimes they're creative with those skills, but there's a lot of luck factor to the building of the character. This one, he's like, you know what? This is my weakness. I have this weakness. I wonder if I could push forward and make something that would fit this weakness. It feels more like a great RPG that you would play where you're like, you know what? I kind of suck at this. How can I fix that? It's it's just really good. It's just really good.
So you said that there's only one lull so far, and that's in book 10.
Mhm. Yes.
Isn't this the same series that just last time we were recording you described like 3 pages of him just reading off statistics?
One lull in the story. The statistics are there's too much of them. That is a negative. But I'm talking
Is
like
that
He Who Fights with Monsters has arcs that are just you're like, just come on, let's go to the next thing. What are we doing? This one, and he also has too many statistics. Like, there's also too much of that. This one has too many statistics, but as far as story wise, it just has that one little spot that's a little bit of a lull.
is the statistics like a constant irritant, or is it just like an occasional he goes on too much about it?
It is, it's constant. It's too much in the books, and you can skip
Okay.
it. That's what I've started to do because there's too much of it. Um,
Okay.
we don't need to go like in one book he'll go over the full status of the character 2 or 3 times, and you just don't need that. You can do it once and it would be totally fine. I wish it was once. Dungeon Crawler Carl I think does it a little too much. I genuinely would love for a stats like the end of the book, like one time at the end of the book, so we know where they were at. This book does it 2 or 3 times and it's just too much. And then when he's developing a new skill, he'll read the old skill off, exactly what it does, the whole description of the skill, and then he'll read the new skill, exactly what it does with the whole description of the skill. And it might just be a change in one line. And it's too much and it could be edited down for sure.
I was gonna say I like how Dungeon Crawler Carl does it because he never once goes over all of his statistics in one shot.
I would love it to do it just once. I literally actually wrote Matt that in Patreon this last week. I was like, I even gave him a story on how to do it, and made it so that people knew that that was what was going on. And if you didn't care about it, you can just skip it. But do it at the end of his book and include it once because there's a lot of fans who would love a full stat read of Carl and Donuts stats. I would love that. I would love it just once.
I would not care for it at all. I just like how Dungeon Crawler Carl does it with the when a stat is relevant, he will tell you the stat.
It makes it feel like
That's
the
it.
stats are less relevant in general to me because they're just like, oh, the stats went up. Cool. That's great. The
Well, except when
stats
he's like,
don't
"Oh, this
matter.
is my ability and this is my skill and this is how I put them to fit together and
It makes
do
it feel like
cool
the
things with."
stats don't matter as much to me and more the skills do and the way that they intertwine the skills and the way that he combines the skills in very unique ways is fantastic. He does a great job with that, but it makes it feel like, oh, the strength went up. Cool. And every once in a while, you'll reach a threshold where you get to the 100 points and you get a new ability. So that matters. Or you go get charisma at 200 for a donut, and that matters. But other than that, it's just kind of like, okay, they're at 170 with strength. Cool. That's
Right,
great.
but that's how most people play video games, right? It's you get to the point where you're leveling up and you're leveling up you're just to that stat. You're not paying attention to the other stuff.
So I went to a conference and Matt was there, and the guy who writes Completionist was there, and there's another series called New Age Rising. That's one of my favorite lit RPGs. Also, he was there, and they showed me their spreadsheets on how they keep track of all of these different skills. Because I wanted to see, I was interested. I've thought about writing a book like this. And the amount of spreadsheets they have is insane. Like there's so much information, especially the completionist guy. And I want to see a little bit of that. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in the numbers that they're putting together for all of these different characters and how that affects their actual storytelling. But I don't get to see that, and I want to see a little bit of that. I just don't want to see that 3 times in one book.
I understand that. I'm just saying, for me,
That's
who
perfect.
likes the stories, I like the stats to come up when they're relevant. And
Would you
if
be
they
a
ever did do just like a here's his stat sheet, I would skip it. Even
would
if it
you be
was
a,
only once.
even if they just put it at the very end of the book, you would just skip it?
Yep.
Okay. So would you be opposed to them adding it just once at the end
No,
of the book, even with a
no, I've got
clarifier that's
nothing
like,
against
that's
it.
what we're doing it?
No, I've got nothing against it.
Do you think I am heavily in the minority that would want
Yeah.
that?
Yep.
Heavily, okay.
Heavily in the
Heavily.
minority.
Okay.
Most people would not care. Even lit RPG people don't fully expect the stats to even line up. I feel like most people, drawing from a crowd of 4 lit RPG readers, me, you, and 2 other people that I know, one of them has even said, like, I don't even think the author knows what the actual stats are, and they just throw numbers out when they need to throw numbers out.
And they know like the main points, like we need the donut to be above 200 because that's the rules of my
Yep.
system.
Yep.
Some of these authors definitely know just because I've seen their spreadsheets and they're tracking everything.
So I know that some will go way into it. I'm just saying
But some of them
that
won't.
of my very small pool of people to draw from, a quarter of them don't put stock into the author even putting through the effort to even knowing what the stat he last said it was is what it was.
Hmm.
Like the way it was described to me was like, yeah, in book 2 his stat was 25 and in book 3 his stat was 22. And there's no reason why that would go down. And so like that's kind of where it's at. And I think that there's a little more that should be there when you're talking about a lit RPG, right? Like the author should be putting in the effort to at least know what the stats are that they're stating to make sure
And
it's
what that
consistent
actually
and makes
means for
sense
their
for the
world.
story. Yeah. But I don't think it needs to be at so in depth that they're like, here's a full read of their stats, and now they're leveling up, and so here's a full read of their new stats. Look, their strength went up by 2. You
Fair
know,
enough.
like I don't care. I care about the stats and the skills when they are relevant.
And
I
but
think the
that's about it.
skills are more interesting for a storytelling perspective, especially with like Dungeon Crawler Car, where they establish that like when he's level 1, he's stronger than any human that has ever existed. You know, so it's like, okay, we get it. He's already the Hulk. Woohoo! He got more strength.
He's
You
more
know,
hulky. Who cares?
yeah. Yeah. So it's a great way to do it with that story. And I understand that if there was like a story more focused, because like you said, Dungeon Crawler Carl's more interested in the skills. But the skills have like stat requirements. So if you had it the opposite way, where you had a story that was more stat based than skill based, then maybe I would be a little more interested in it. But either it would be like Dungeon Crawler Car, where you tell me what it is when it is relevant, or it's like you're suggesting and they do it once at the beginning or at the end of the book.
I think they
and
should
not
do it
both.
once at the end of the book. Just that would be great. That is what I really think that they should do.
Yeah,
I think that would be
I
the
don't care,
best way
but
to do it.
that's fine. Yeah, do it. Why not?
Why not?
It's not going to hurt anything. They all already have the information, like you said. They've got.
Yeah. It'd be so easy to add. And
Yeah,
I know that there's people who want it. Maybe I'm probably in the heavy minority, but I know there's people who want it, and
yeah.
I want it.
I don't know why. Like, what are you going to do with that information?
I just like looking at the numbers. I think if I was a more of a sports fan, I would really get in the statistics of sports. I think I would be one of those baseball nerds who knows throwing and hitting percentages and all of that crap. I really think I would get into that.
Sounds boring. Boring as hell. But okay. I'm going to go on to my next topic.
Okay.
Should be a short one. Uh, Another anime I rewatched. It's only one season long. Toradora. It's another feel good, very positive, enjoyable anime uh, with another stupid premise. The premise being rich girl moves next to poor boy.
Okay.
And poor boy has a crush on rich girl's best friend. Rich girl, by the way, has no parents around because her parents are so rich that they just gave her this apartment to live in by herself. So
Okay.
she's not taking care of herself. So they make a deal to help each other out with each other's crushes, and also he's going to take care of her. So this whole show, literally, it's one season long. The entire season is like, guy has a crush on this girl, and this girl's really gonna help her, is trying to help get him to her, and
Okay.
she has a crush on his friend, and he's trying to help her get to him, but they're both like too uncomfortable and awkward to ever make a move. And then the second to last episode is they realize they have feelings for each other and they run away to get married. And the last episode is they don't do that.
Oh, you told me about this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
sounded dumb. The ending sounded dumb.
yeah. I mean, it's not as bad as the first time I watched it, because the first time I was really like, wait, what the crap? That's so stupid. Uh, I still don't like it, to be clear. Mostly because, like, the rich girl doesn't communicate with the guy,
Okay.
right? Like, if there was a scene where they were like, hey, you know what? I don't think that running away from our problems is actually the right call. That would be one thing. But the fact that she unilaterally just decides, nope, not doing it, and I'm running off on my own, and then I'm going to show up at the end of the show, it's like,
Just bad.
what? That is not healthy at all. You deserve better, my dude. You deserve better. You should go be with the girl you originally wanted, because guess what? She actually likes you, and it has been established, and is a good person, and is just better at this point, because it's like in How I Met Your Mother when Lily runs away and
Yeah,
breaks up with Marshall. It's like, that is so unbelievably selfish. Marshall deserves better in that moment.
absolutely.
I've kind of, but that's kind of how just like this show kind of ends. I was like, okay,
It's really
like
too bad.
just have them have the growth where they have the difficult conversation, and I would have a completely different perspective on the same events coming through if they just had the
Had
conversation.
the conversation, just one conversation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's really enjoyable all the way through till just like the end. Um, and the end, like I said, isn't bad. It's not so awful. I wouldn't recommend the show, but it does mean I would put it after. So watch More Than a Married Couple, Less Than Lovers, then watch Toradora.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you put that over things like Attack on Titan or?
No,
Oh,
but
okay.
they're not comparable.
Okay. You just
I know they're
mentioned.
animes, so you have to be in an anime mood, and then you have to decide what kind of anime you want to watch, right?
Okay.
Because if you say, "Oh, I want to watch something epic," I'm not gonna be like, "Watch Love Is War." No, I'm gonna tell you to watch Attack on Titan. Uh, oh, I want to watch a fantasy like lit RPG esque thing. I'm not gonna be like, "Watch Love Is War." I'm gonna tell you to watch Solo Leveling, right? So you gotta be in the mood for like a rom com, and for people like us, you also have to be in the mood to watch anime.
Yeah,
When you're not in the mood to watch anime doesn't even matter if you like it. It's like terrible to watch.
it's awful to watch. It's
You know?
weird.
Yeah. But when you're in the mood for anime and you want something positive and just good to watch and kind of like a, romance movie, there's a few for you. Like I said, Devil's a Part Timer would be my number one. Kaguya, Love is War would be my number two because I really genuinely love that one.
It's very good.
Then I would probably say Married, More Than a Married Couple, Less Than Lovers. Uh, Mostly because I think the dynamic between I'm a ditzy popular girl and him being I'm a loser nerd, and them actually just discovering that there's more to each other than just those basic things is really, really good. You know, that's good. Like in Ted Lasso, when you find out he's more than just like a positive guy. He's
It's good.
burying his issues with positivity, right? She's trying to get attention, so she's being popular and ditzy, but she's not actually popular ditzy. You
It's
know,
just being that to get the
she's
attention.
just portraying that because she wants love and thinks that that's the way to get it. Um, and he thinks he's a loser who nobody pays attention to. But once she starts getting that attention and confidence, he realizes that there's a lot more people out there, and it's great. It's really good.
It's awesome, man. It's I don't know if I'll watch that one because the ending sucks. But I'll definitely watch More Than a Married Couple.
You should, if you like more, if you like More Than a Married Couple, and you get all the way through it, and you're still okay with watching anime, I would say just try it.
Okay. Okay.
If you really like, I would say it's still worth watching, and I'm glad that I watched it. So, like, you could just stop watching, not watch the last two episodes, or just know that they're not great and kind of irritating for that reason. Like, you'll get through it okay. It's not so terrible that I wouldn't say don't watch it.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, let's end that our this episode. Thanks everybody for listening and or watching once again. Enjoy the rest of your guys this evening or day or morning.
See you guys.